Hello friends, let me take this pleasure to discuss with you about career in banking industry. Banking has been a much sought career. Let us first understand that what is modern banking all about. Bank is basically a financial institution which is licensed to receive deposits and make loans. And this is one of the basic needs of the society which is satisfied by the banks, that individuals would be able to park their savings into the bank, and whenever they are in the need of, they can withdraw their own funds, and also they could be able to borrow as per the need. That is the basic function of the bank. But modern banking is augmented with certain other services as wealth management, currency exchange, and many other value added services. That is why banking is much sought and demanding career these days. Now let us further understand that what are different openings in banking sector and what are different verticals in which we can get the job opportunities. First and foremost area which is very significant, that is retail banking. Under this section, there are different functions, different activities which are related to customer service directly. Bank would be able to help the customers in terms of opening the account, in terms of servicing that account, providing the loan to the customers, etc. Very important department and section of the bank. The second important vertical is wealth and portfolio management. Under this, bank help their customers to maintain the portfolio so that they could be able to create the wealth as per the required goals. Third very important vertical is legal vertical, in which the knowledge of Banking Regulation Act is required and certain other intricacies which are required to handle the legal issues related to day-to-day banking operations. Then the other vertical which is very promising these days, that is credit card vertical. The other one is recovery vertical, under which the loans which are sanctioned by the bank are recovered as on due date. That is also very important. The another vertical is training vertical, under which bank provide different advisory and training services to its customers. Then the operation vertical is there, which provide different backend and data analytics support to overall banking. Then the treasury vertical is there, which ensures the sufficient supply of currency and notes all over in different sections, departments of the bank. Currency handling, ATM management, all would be covered under this. Then one of the most emerging and much sought vertical in banking services is risk and business intelligence, under which bank provides different services related to forecasting of business, and bank would be in the need of analyzing that what product is better for which customer. All that business intelligence would be provided under this vertical. That is also very promising and worth joining vertical, much sought these days. Now let us understand different skill sets which are required for the banking job. First and foremost, I would say, is that the knowledge of business finance. Business finance includes the knowledge of risk analysis, ratio analysis, capital budgeting, capital structure, working capital, dividend policy, cash optimization strategies. So that is something which is the basic thing that must be known to the job aspirants in this sector. After that, the knowledge related to wealth management must be there. That what portfolio should be suitable to a particular customer. That is very, very important. Another set of knowledge which is required, that is legal, under which the knowledge of Banking Regulation Act would be required. Then the skill set related to operations and the concerned activities like Six Sigma, service management, that is there. Then the customer service, under which customer service management and the related softwares like Finacle and all, they are required to be known. After that, credit management, which is very important, under which the capital adequacy ratio, the required capital adequacy ratio is to be maintained, and different credit management and risk management strategies are there. They are to be known. There are different tools to handle the credit policy of the bank, that should be known. In the end, risk analysis and financial analytics, under which the skills related to data science and to handle the data by using ARIMA modeling, then co-integration modeling. After that, there are different other concepts of short-term causalities which are there. arch and gauge modeling is required to be known in order to have proper, business intelligence. Now let us understand the eligibility which is there for the banking jobs. The basic eligibility is graduation. It may be BA, BA honors, BCom, BCom honors, BSc, etc. But the desirable qualification, which is seen during your interview, that is also very important when the screening of application is taking place. So that is business education like MBA, MFC, BBA, financial analyst, data analytics, these qualifications. And after that, let us understand the entry route. Written examination is conducted by IBPS for probationary officers in different public sector banks. Campus placements from different premier business institutions by leading banks, under which the banks would be visiting premier business institutions to induct the management trainees. Direct interview is conducted for a specialized position as well. Now let's understand the specialization required at post-graduation level for these jobs. First and most important course that can be done is MBA Finance, then MBA Financial Service, MBA Banking and Finance, MBA Financial Analytics and Data Science, MBA Journal with the specialization in financial services. Wishing you good luck. Thank you.
Greetings everyone. Welcome to season 2 of Martiniere Career Guidance Cell. We will be interviewing an eminent personality in the field of banking. And with us today we have Mr. Deveshwar Dayal Mathur, who is an alumnus of Martiniere College, Lucknow, from the batch of 1984. He went on to study BCom Honours from Shriram College of Commerce and has spent 28 years with HSBC Bank, serving in various top capacities. He has also served as the Chief Operating Officer of HSBC India. Later, he served in regional roles for Asia region. Mr. Mathur was later appointed as the Chief Operating Officer of Bank of America's Global Technology and Operation Department. Having been an elite world-class banker for over 31 years, we are certain that all our viewers and listeners shall gain profound knowledge of a career in banking. So the first question that we'd like to ask you is that despite banking being a very well-renowned career path, most students are not aware about what the work of a banker is like. So could you please help us understand what is the work and life of a banker like?
Very interesting question, Roman, because the life of a banker is a very wide subject, right? Banking is about making people meet their goals, right? It can touch you in pretty much every sphere of your life. So whether you're an individual or you're a company or you're a government or you're a cross-border institution, banking has to be an integral part of what you're doing, right? So let's first understand which are the various types of banking activities, right? So the easiest and the ones that all of you see all the time are what is called personal banking or retail banking, which is about banking with individuals like you, Roman, I am, and myself, right? It is about helping us meet our goals, right? So if, for example, we have extra money, we go and put it in a bank. So the bank's role, it's called a fiduciary role, which means you have a responsibility to look after people's money. Banks look after people's money, right? So they put money into different instruments such as savings accounts, fixed deposits, certificates of deposits, or whatever might be the investment avenue. And now today, mutual funds and various other ways, you take money from individuals like you and me, and you place it into investments. So that is one kind of work that banks do. Equally, suddenly, Roman, you go and see a really nice motorbike, and you go to your dad and say, I want to buy this motorbike. So your dad says, go and take a loan from the bank, right? So you go and take a loan from the bank. So the banks help people meet their life goals, right? Now, life goals can be several. You may want to go and study after your class 12 overseas, for which you need a loan. You may want to buy your first car. You may want to buy your first house. You may want to borrow and carry out some sort of an investment to set up your small business. There can be so many different ways in which you may need financing help, right? And banks are in the business of providing that help. So the banks take money from people, both companies, individuals, governments, and they give money to individuals, companies, and governments, right? So therefore, the first thing in retail banking is all about this. It is also all about giving people what they call unsecured lending, which means that you give people a credit card, right? Now, a credit card is something that you go and spend on. Then you have an obligation to take the money back. Now, how do banks make money typically is they take deposits and pay you a certain amount of interest. Then they lend the same money to other people and they charge slightly higher interest than the amount that they pay you, right? And that difference between paying relatively low interest for the deposits that they take versus charging slightly higher interest for the lending that they make is called spread. And that is how banks make money. Now remember, banks are a business. They are set up to earn money. Okay. So let's talk now of other types of banking. So I spoke to you about retail banking. Now the other type of banking can be corporate banking. So there are companies, large companies, small companies which have not yet issued share capital, which is publicly available or listed. Those whole range of companies and institutions require banking support. So there are many ways in which banks help, right? And for example, in companies or corporate banking, you may want to give a loan, a term loan for some companies to work as working capital. Now, what is working capital? Working capital means the money that companies and businesses need on a day-to-day basis to meet their expenses. Then somebody may want to expand their business. So today you have one shop in Hazratganj. Tomorrow you want to buy another shop in Aminabad. Third day you want to buy one in Lulu Mall. How does a business grow? You need to get money from a bank. You need to borrow money from a bank. All of that is called corporate banking, helping those companies understand and grow. Banks are also in the business, by the way, to try and do various types of research and help for companies and businesses to better understand opportunities. That is also another part of banking, which is called investment banking. There are ways in which you grow internationally. So today you are in India. Tomorrow you want to grow somewhere else. For example, you want to set up another business in Singapore, right? And if that happens, then banks also come. And then they help you on both sides of the business, right? Internationally. So all of this work, which is towards companies and helping companies grow, is called corporate and investment banking. Then there is another category of banking, which is relatively new and which is very exciting now, which is all about doing work for financial technology companies, work which is setting up, today India has become the powerhouse of information and knowledge, right? And data. And all of these companies are growing. Banks are also in the business of providing initial funding for that. So that can be something which is for newly set up technology-led companies, right? But let me not go too far into trying to explain you the types of banking. All I should say for you as kids is that banking is something that touches everybody and every business in every possible way that you can imagine. It is the one industry that is truly the backbone of any economy. And especially as economies are growing and especially as the world is progressing in technology, banks have a very important role to play. I hope that answers your question.
Definitely.
But those are opportunities, right? Now, the question that you had is careers in banking. So it doesn't matter whether in class 11 you're a science student or you're a commerce student or you're an art student. There are careers in banking available for each one of you, right? So if you're a science student, for example, and you want to develop your skills in technology, right? And you want to develop your skills in cutting edge software development or cutting edge innovation today, then that is where the science skills are necessary. STEM education is important, right? And banks are utilizing those to actually better think and better manage what the real customers want, right? So you are today in the business of being able to forecast, for example, what is it that Mr. Rizvi tomorrow wants to do by looking at the pattern of his transactions, right? You need a deep domain experienced science professional to be able to do that. Similarly, if you're a commerce graduate, then it doesn't matter. You will really need to be at the forefront of banking as well, because bankers need to understand businesses. Bankers need to be analytical. Bankers need to have the skills to be able to really appreciate what do businesses really need. And for that, commerce education is perfect. If you're an art student, it's fine because you're great at conversations. You're great at trying to understand exactly what is it that will be the way that you can create the communication, the connect to various people, whether it's companies or individuals, right? So the short answer in this case would be that it doesn't matter which field of education you're in, banking will have people needed from all across all of this, right? So each one of you who's studying in school can actually aspire to be a banker.
Thank you so much, sir, for your comprehensive answer. I'm glad that you were able to cover the different aspects of what goes on into banking and the prerequisites, and also the fact that a person, if they have science, commerce, or humanities, they can choose to opt for banking. That is very positive to hear, so that people who want to pursue aren't restricted by their field of interest. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for that answer, and also to clarifying that what are the various base level points which we need to, clarify for ourselves if we want to pursue banking as a career. So now talking about after we've been clear with the basic understanding of banking, so acknowledging the fact that how banking has shifted almost completely to an all online platform, do you think that it has been a boon for the industry, or is the extreme opposite?
It is a boon for the industry, right? What is happening in the whole world is that there is a paradigm shift in the way people's skills need to be developed and recognized, right? This is something which is happening right across the world, right? So therefore, back in the old days, you would have to take copious notes, you would have to make reference materials, you would have to pour through hundreds of books to be able to gather information and knowledge. But today you have it at the tap of a button, right? You can look up Google, you can check anything online, you can have Google Maps take you from one point to the other. So the whole world is changing, right? And banking has to change with it. So what has happened, Ayan, to answer your specific question, is that the way banking is conducted is changing. The needs of customers and clients and people like you and me is changing. And banks have to tailor their services and their offerings to be able to meet the requirements of today, right? So in a way, it is a combination of what needs are there for different categories of clients, right? So, for example, relatively young customers like you and many others today would hate to go to a branch of a bank, right? You would want everything to be conducted on the phone, right? You maybe even sometimes be lazy to even go to the phone. You just want it all done just on its own, magically, right? Now, this can't happen just by itself, right? So banks have to invest a lot of money into trying to understand how to fulfill the needs of today's customers by using what you're learning, I believe, in school, which is artificial intelligence, by using and understanding data. So eventually, trying to understand what the client's needs are is a factor of having the right information and using the right information for the right things, right? So therefore, banks have to become really smart at that. Just like Zomato and Swiggy understand what you've eaten for the last 1 month and can suggest to you the next dish that you need to order, banks have also got to do the same, right? So we need to understand, okay, how old are you, Ayan? If you're today in class 11, next year you'll finish IIT and you will need to go to university. Now, if you want to be studying in UK, for example, the bank will automatically, through information, have that data, and they should be able to come to you and say, okay, Ayan, if you want to now go to UK to do your undergraduation, can we help you with a student loan, right? So that's just one example of how artificial intelligence is developing. So the way bankers have to think and the way banks have to spontaneously now change is the main focus that we need to think about. There is nothing called good or bad, but this is all about technology and physical infrastructure, depending on which customer base and which profile of customers you're talking about. If you have some elders in the house, they would not want to be sitting and trying to work through an app. They feel very comfortable touching money, meeting tellers, speaking to their branch managers, speaking to their investment managers, right? They want to go to the branch. They want to speak to staff, right? So banks have to cater to that as well. So while technology can become an enabler for very young people, for the slightly older profile of customers, and that's thousands and thousands and thousands of people, you need to have the physical infrastructure also created. So therefore, banks have to do that as well, right? So today we are going through a phase where both types of solutions have got to be there. And successful banks are those which are able to distinguish and have that whole suite of solutions available. So that's one side of what you asked. The other thing, which is a slightly bigger question, and maybe it's a slightly, I would say, profound subject for very young kids to be talking about or thinking. But the fact is that banks are now being challenged not by other banks. They're being challenged by, of course, new age banks, but they're also being challenged by social media organizations, right? So what if tomorrow Facebook was to be able to offer a banking service, right? Now, they have both information, right? Chances are that they will have, if Ayan wants to send Roman some money, Facebook has both people's information. Maybe they will start sending money. Google has already started a payment service, you know that, right? So banks are now also having to consider how we will look at and face some of the new age realities. But banking, just for you kids to know, is a highly regulated industry. When I say regulated, it means that there are central banks in every country. In India, this is called the Reserve Bank of India, which actually controls how banking has to be carried out. They control how you can lend money, and they also control for which purposes you can do what. That ability of so-called censorship is important to run a bank anywhere in the world. Banking is not just, anyone can set it up and start running it, right? You have to be very, very conscious of rules and regulations. And it's important, therefore, to remember that at least for the foreseeable future, banking will have to be managed both through technology enablement as well as through the more traditional ways which are regulated. I'll stop. But it means that we cannot have what was famously called as the Kodak moment. You remember that? Kodak used to make cameras, they used to make instant films, they used to put a film in a camera and take pictures, and then came digital and Kodak collapsed, right? Or you had the Nokia moment where this company used to make the best phones in the world, and one day smartphones got created and all the traditional phones went out, right? So therefore banking is also a bit like that. You have to remain alert and alive, right? Anyways, long conversation, but hopefully it helps you understand what banking is.
Yes, sir, it was long but quite comprehensive, especially when you mentioned how artificial intelligence is coming in with banking. So that is something which I also request all the viewers to make a note of, because this is something which I don't think any of us knew before meeting you, sir. So thank you so much for that answer.
So you talked about up and coming banks, which are usually termed as neobanks, them being a competition to the traditional and conventional method of banking. So, sir, don't you think that it is also a career path in itself? Along with that, if a person wants to pursue banking in the conventional way, what are the different aspects for that? Along with a person wanting to pursue a career or creating a fintech firm or a neobank.
Yeah, so I think all of the newer banks or all the fintech firms are really the ones which are today coming up with a bunch of ideas, which are all expected to provide solutions at pace, in keeping with what the expectations today are, Raman. Now, as careers, this is a very exciting range of careers which are available to all you kids, right? So, for example, if you have the ability to see, the first thing is to conceptualize and think of what that great idea itself is. The second thing is, what kind of technology do you really need to enable that, right? So, for example, tomorrow you say that we want to set up a particular utility which can seamlessly make payments, or I want to set up something which can easily move money from one country to another, whatever might be your business model. There are lots and lots of job opportunities for people who can actually help conceptualize and operationalize that. You need lots of people who can write computer code. You need lots of people who understand how the rules of banking work. You need lots of people who understand how legal and operationalizing the structure of the company itself. So, you need a lawyer, you need a banker, you need a finance professional, you need a technology person, you need a hardcore operations person, you need people who understand regulations, and so many different types of people have to come together to set up something even in the neo age opportunities. So you can be in any field of education, but find a place to support and grow and work in that arena. And this is fun stuff, right? This is where you actually are at liberty to try and experiment a little more. To some extent, traditional banking is a little more conservative, but this is a little more non-conservative. But the other thing which you must realize is that to some extent, a lot of the neobanks work and the work that is there with, say, the local payments bank or Razorpay or any of these companies that you keep hearing about, to some extent, the scope of what they do is limited. Most of what they do today in this country is restricted to fund movements and managing fund movements, or doing research and analytics around KYC and knowing customers and creating databases, but they're relatively contained and limited. Banks, on the other hand, transcend a variety of other responsibilities, right? So you, like I was explaining it right at the beginning, banks have the responsibility to help individuals, they have the responsibility to help corporate customers, they have the responsibility to help governments, they have the responsibility to help a variety of infrastructure organizations, and so on and so forth. And for each one of them, there is a separate category of banking which is to be in place. And you cannot do away with that, right? So therefore, both sides have got to be preserved. I keep coming back to that. It is not one or the other, okay? But opportunities for you as professionals have got to be in both. So let me help you some very basic stuff, right? So therefore, for example, today you're finishing school, you can join a curriculum which is a graduation or an undergraduation, depending on which part of the world you're doing it in. You have to decide phenomenally well where will you be, right? Which really holds your interest, right? So remember one thing, never ever pick up a career that your best friend is picking up or your cousin has picked up or your dad picked up just because that's the right thing to do. The one decision that is yours, which you have to make even as a young kid, is what is it that you enjoy doing most. So pick up that profession, or rather that curriculum and that course or that graduation at this stage bases your interest and nothing else. What will you become? Will you become a banker? Will you become something else? Comes later. The first thing is to get that right. Once you do that, you'll do well in it, right? Then you will develop the ability and the maturity to understand that those skills that you have got, which could be either finance or economics or political science or history or medicine or engineering or whatever it may be, where does that logically then take you to further develop and build on the interest that you have, right? And barring perhaps medicine, every single one of those skills that you've acquired can be used in banking, is something I've told you right at the beginning, right? So then which part of the banks do you really focus on will be a factor of that. So assuming, and I'm picking up only one example, you do a BCom honors and you come out on the other side as a commerce graduate, you may have roles and responsibilities in banks in either pure consumer banking, which means working in branches. If you come out as a commerce graduate, you can be in retail banking. You can be in departments which are looking at loans. You might be in departments which are looking at understanding customer needs from any kind of finance requirement that they have. Or you could be in corporate banking, where you're trying to do the same with companies. You can be in trade finance, where you're trying to understand how does cross-border trade work. So for example, if you're somebody who's doing a business in India and want to be buying goods from China, then that requires bankers to try and bring buyers and sellers together. And all of those kind of jobs, including everything in investment banking, which is all about trying to do, accessing money through capital markets or doing private equity work or doing fintech related work, everything that you're doing today can be done if you're a commerce graduate, right? The same, all of these jobs are available even if you're an arts graduate. There's nothing to preclude you from that, okay? So don't feel very hassled if, for example, you don't have the perfect choice of subjects, etc. It's then a question of interest. It's then a question of, do I really have my heart in this, right? And if that's what your calling is, then banking will embrace all of that. As a joke, I can tell you that I was COO for the bank in India, and my boss, who was the CEO of the bank in India, who was a Britisher, he was a graduate in Persian. Right now, where is Persian and where is the CEO of HSBC in India as a job? It just shows you that at the end of the day, there is no one way in which you can develop yourself as a banker. As long as you're comfortable with numbers, as you're comfortable with basic business, and you're comfortable with basic communication. And the last piece, I'm sure Martiniere will teach you well, right? You will always be great at communication, right? So therefore, coming out of this great school, all of you will be potentially very, very good bankers in your life.
Thank you so much, sir, for helping us understand that. And I am quite happy to know that a field such as banking, a very well-renowned field, is open to people who are even graduated in a language such as Persian. So thank you, sir, for your answer and helping us understand the different aspects and what are the different scopes of neobanks as well as the traditional banks. Could you please help us understand, if a person wants to make a name for themselves as a renowned banker, how can a person do that? What is the roadmap towards being a renowned banker?
There's no shortcut. Okay, you don't become a renowned banker overnight. There is no special formula that I can give you. It is, remember, a career, whether it's banking or any career for that matter, is a bit like a marathon. It's not a sprint, it's a long race, right? There are just 3 or 4 basic attributes that I can share with you, which I feel help me in good stead, right? So when I came out from the Martiniere as a student, I really had no premonition of where I'll reach or what I'll do, right? But here are the 4 or 5 things that have helped me across my career, right? So the first thing is, always be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else in the world, okay? You're always the best when you're yourself, right? So the one thing that you must all remember is that each one of us as a human being is born with unique skills, unique strengths, right? Play to your strengths, but be yourself. So be comfortable in your own skin. Don't try to talk English like somebody else's accent. Don't try to wear clothes like somebody else. Just be yourself. Once you're unpretentious and you're comfortable being yourself, you'll succeed. So that's one. The second thing is, continue to invest in your own education right through your life. Please remember, one of the best and important things that you feel you know is that very often you start feeling, oh, I know everything, right? And I can tell you with my own experience, I'm learning today a lot more than maybe I used to learn in the classrooms next to Spence Hall when I was your age, right? Every day of your life, something new will confront you, and you have to learn to adapt and you have to learn to keep pace. So the second simple lesson in life is that learning is a lifelong journey. It is not something that you forget. So just to bring it more to life, I, for example, understood very little about technology, right? I was trained to be a chartered accountant. I studied and worked for the most part of my initial years as a banker. And then there came a phase in my life where I was managing technology. I had to learn how does the computer system of a bank work. I had to learn how it all integrates. I had to learn the platforms which have to be created to be able to offer services as bankers. I had to learn so many things. And I was probably over 40 years of age when I did that, right? So the fact is that you will always have to learn. So the second important lesson is you have to always keep learning. The third thing, which is very, very important, is communications, right? Especially in banking. Banking is a business which has its basic foundation on strong communication. If you don't have the ability to communicate well, if you don't get the confidence to communicate across a spectrum of stakeholders in your life, in your job, then it becomes very difficult. So you have to learn to communicate well with clients. You need to learn to communicate well with peers. You need to communicate well with businesses. You need to communicate well with regulators, right? So therefore, communication is a very important subject. Like I was telling you earlier, I used to debate when I was in school. I used to do elocutions. Those things which I learned in the Martiniere, standing in front of 100 students, half of them were laughing at you. Remember how nervous it can be when you're standing there in Spence Hall? But whatever I learned in those days helped me right through my life. So that ability to communicate with confidence is very, very important. Okay. The fourth thing is that whether it is banking or maybe many other professions, but banking in particular, you have to really be good at dealing with human beings and making sure that you're basically interested in managing and motivating and guiding and shepherding other human beings in a specific direction, right? Famous and not famous, I can't comment. But if I've been even moderately successful in my career, then it is only because I have a genuine interest in other human beings. And normally, human beings want to do things with positivity in the same way, irrespective of what their age is, right? So if I bought a bun samosa for somebody in canteen when I was your age, and made a person happy. Even today, if I go and buy a samosa for a person who's sitting outside my office who might be doing a hard job, the smile on his face is exactly the same, right? So therefore, the one thing you must always learn early in your life is that you should take a genuine interest in understanding how to be good at helping and managing other human beings, because everything later in your life will be about how others help you, right, and make you look good. You're not Superman. Nobody can be Superman in this world. Those are only in Marvel comics and theaters, right? In reality, if you have to be Superman, then 90, 100, 2,000, 50,000 others have got to make you look like a Superman, right? So human connect is very important. And the final thing is basic integrity, okay? Basic integrity or basic ability to be always doing the right thing, right? I'm sorry, this again sounds like a bit of a lecture, but it is a fact, right? Remember, irrespective of which career you're in, you have to have very high standards of personal integrity, especially in banking. You have to have very, very high standards of personal integrity. You know why? Because you're playing with other people's money. You're dealing with somebody else's hard-earned money, right? So you cannot, as a banker, not be the highest level of integrity holder at all times, right? And that is very important. So those are the basic small things only that you should remember. If you can remember these things, you will become that famous banker that you're talking about. There's no other secret sauce, okay? But just stay invested. Once you stay invested in careers, good things happen to you. Maybe I missed one more. Take risks in your career and embrace things that you've never done before. It doesn't matter again which career you're in. You can be the same as a doctor or an engineer or any other profession at all, but take some risks. Go in and do something that you've never done before. That'll keep you very challenged and intellectually motivated, and more importantly, you'll develop as a person. So take risks. It really doesn't matter. And I'm sure if you do all of those things together, you will be far more successful than I have been.
So that's so kind of you to mention. Thank you so much. And so there is a question which I generally ask all of the guests whom we have here, and that is something which is extremely important for me to note as well. Since you've clarified everything with relation to banking, I want to ask you that how do we manage the school activities, and a lot of activities I tell you at our school, how do we manage them with the studies for our future profession, quite like banking you might have done in your school, like we had a conversation before starting the podcast?
Well, you are a privileged generation, right? You are today privileged because in Martiniere especially, you're exposed to so many activities which we were not exposed to, at least when we were students, right? Now, my guidance to you is very simple. Make sure that you find time to develop your personality as holistically as possible. The way you build your personalities is very important. So spend some time of your day outdoors. All of us are stuck and glued to our devices nowadays, right? Spend some time playing games. Spend some time. You know why? Playing games and doing team sports teaches you some life lessons which are impossible to learn through textbooks. You learn to appreciate each other. You learn to depend on each other. You learn to play to each other's strengths. So you might be a fabulous center forward. Somebody else might be a great goalkeeper. Somebody else might be a left back. Until and unless you appreciate each and everybody's strengths in a team, you will never succeed, right? How did you beat Martiniere Calcutta 11-1 this year? Your entire 11 players must have played a perfect game of coordination between each other, right? So therefore, the outdoors is very important. The third area which is developing today, which is available to you in the school, I believe, which is great, is that you should learn the new skills of today. So if there are lessons that you have available in AI, if you have lessons today in data sciences, if you have lessons today in understanding how technology works, those things were not available in our times. Just sponge on that. Spend the time that is required to understand that better. The sooner you learn all of that, the better. But above everything else, don't lose the masti that Martiniere teaches you. That is the single ingredient that will serve you well all your life. If you're a positive, happy human being in general, you will succeed irrespective of which career you're in. So again, sorry, such a long answer to your question, Ayan, but I guess what I'm saying to you is that find the time for everything. There are 24 hours in a day. Find some time at least in those 24 hours to develop and work on other aspects than to aspire to get those perfect scores in your class 12. Well, that's a rat race. Unfortunately, it's horrible the way it is in India. I wish we could all do something to change it. But if you're going to remain very obsessed about the fact that if I don't get 98%, I'll not get through SRCC, I got in with a lower score in my times, then you'll miss having fun. You'll miss developing your personality. You'll miss so many other things, right? It doesn't matter which institute you pass out from. Obviously, you should aspire to be in the best. But at the end of the day, if you have a good, solid, well-rounded personality and a overall demeanor, life will take you a lot further. That's what I've learned. Okay, so I hope that helped you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for that answer. And sir, before we started this podcast, you also mentioned that you have a team of 30,000 individuals which you've been leading for a while, right? So, sir, based on that, do you have any recommendations for the leaders of now so that we can, follow the same advice and thereafter move towards a better future?
Yeah, so like I told you, we have people in this organization that I head today who are developing technology solutions for our clients globally. We have people who are helping streamline, improve, and modify processes so that customers who walk into Bank of America get better service. We have people who are in the business of trying to understand and work at forecasting for our various businesses in terms of analytics. We have people who are helping close the balance sheet or create the balance sheet and develop and declare the results of the bank globally. So literally every part of the bank is supported today from India. And I sit in a very privileged position where I can, influence a very large number of people here. And the only thing that I want to say is that it is important for us to ensure that the skills that we have stay contemporary, right? Above everything else today, it is very important in this industry to have the right people with the right skills thinking about what the future holds. It is a service industry, guys. You must remember, Raman and Ayan, that banking is a service industry. It is no different from a hotel or an airline, right? You have to understand who are your customers, what are their needs, what would they want from a bank, what did they want last time when they came into the bank, right? So I'll give you a very small example of something that happened yesterday. So me and my family had gone for a holiday and we stayed at the Trident Hotel. And the last time I was at the Trident Hotel, I remember calling housekeeping and asking them for one extra shampoo, conditioner, and bath for wash, right? Yesterday when I checked in and I went into the room, my room, the washroom, had 2 sets of each of these. So what had they done? They had made a note that if Mr. Mathur comes, he asks for this. Maybe he uses more. I mean, I have hardly any hair left, but maybe I use a little more than the others. Who knows? But they made a note of it and they fulfilled it. And what did that create? It created customer delight. The same analogy holds true for a bank. Each time I walk into a bank, the person in front of me should have enough technology assisted knowledge and information to know exactly what I want from the bank. And in 9 out of 10 cases today, banks should be able to do that even without the need for the customer to come into the bank, right? This is called artificial intelligence. This example that I gave you was possible through AI or artificial intelligence, right? The same has now become the engine for behavior for banks and institutions like ours. So for every client, you need to have data on what is it that the client prefers, where did he navigate the last time he went on the website, what products was he interested in, where can we help him in his life journey, and so on and so forth, right? So therefore, this is very, very important.
Thank you so much, sir, for that answer. I'm glad that you were able to help us understand how this ties up to multiple facets of life, which not a lot of people are aware about. Also, the fact that banking is a service industry, which is something what not a lot of people know.
Move on to the last question for today. What is the advice which you would like to share with all the aspiring bankers, which will help them to stay on track and ultimately become successful bankers? As a conclusion remark on that.
Like I said, the summary of everything that we've discussed is that there are hundreds of opportunities in banking, hundreds of ways in which you can associate yourself with banks. there are multiple ways in which you can contribute towards the developing world of finance, which in turn helps build nations. Today, India is on course to becoming one of the leading, most powerful economies of the world. And it will never happen unless there's a very strong foundation of banking and financial institutions underpinning that, right? So when you guys come out of school and get into the business of building a stronger, better India for the future, there are thousands of ways in which you can contribute through the banking system, right? So don't worry about specifically which subject or which curriculum or which aspect of education you're pursuing. Pursue that on the basis of your own passion. And then later, if your banking is of interest, just figure it out and you'll always find job categories which apply to you. Okay? Every kind of skill has a need, right? But remain inquisitive, remain curious. And thank you so much, Ayan and Roman, for having me today. It's been a real pleasure.